Welcome to the Red Bean Podcast, the New Orleans edition. This is your host, Mr. Toad.
And I'm Dr. Frog.
We're going to be talking about the movie that we watched, Room 237.
Yeah, the best room in The Shining. Or at least the most interesting and fantastical room.
You may not want to stay in this room during the winter parts of the year. I'm just saying.
From the educational video The Shining, we were
you might
led to believe that you can avoid that room.
Yeah, you may be attacked by ghosts in that place. But on the other side, you're also going to have random furniture disappear out of thin air.
Yeah, the Overlook. It's the Overlook. The Overlook Hotel, The Shining. Well, first of all, let's just talk. Room 237 is a documentary.
Yep.
And it's set up in a documentary style. And it really just interviews a variety of lay people, like you and I, who've watched The Shining and have come up with various conspiracy theories throughout the ages. And a lot of them remember seeing it when it came out in theaters in the 70s.
So here's a synopsis over it. I would say the documentary includes footage from The Shining and other Kubrick films. So you're going to see things like Clockwork Orange.
2001.
You're going to see Eyes Wide Shut. Apocalypse Now, I think, or
a Full Metal Jacket.
Full Metal Jacket. Yeah. And then along with discussions by Kubrick.
And 2001 Space Odyssey.
And the 2000 Space One.
2001 Space One. This is.
So basically, we reveal hidden clues and hints at a bigger thematic overture.
Yes.
And it was produced by Tim Kirk. The documentary title refers to a room in the haunted Overlook Hotel, just like you were saying.
From the movie The Shining, yeah.
And then overall, the story goes by this. It's this is the action. If you haven't seen The Shining, the premise of the story is that you have these people taking care of this hotel in Colorado, Rocky Mountain. Yeah. His wife Wendy and his son Danny, accompanied for the season, the child exhibiting a psychic power called The Shining, and the hotel chief Dick Halloran also possesses the psychic power and offers advice to the youngest about managing his unusual abilities. As the months wear on, the isolated family suffers from cabin fever and begins to experience paranormal events.
Yeah, a lot of paranormal events. A lot of...
What would you say was the part in The Shining that you found was the most disturbing?
Well, as a kid, I didn't like the maze chase at the end, but probably because I associated myself with the kid being chased by, someone who wanted to kill you and you didn't know where you were in the maze. As I got older, I guess the part with probably room 237, when Jack Nicholson's character, Jack, was seduced by a sort of surreal alien kind of lady, and then the body changes when he succumbs to the temptation. And I thought that was pretty eerie, that was pretty psychological at that point. But, I think there's a lot of symbolism in this movie with the imagery. And what I liked about this documentary, 237, is it goes through a variety of ideas.
What I liked about it was the amount of exposure to color. The red.
Oh, the bright colors.
The bright color, the red.
The blood.
The Native American Indian symbolism throughout.
Throughout the hotel, really.
This idea that you would be watching and being like, wait a second, how can someone put all that luggage in their small vehicle? There's always these absurd amounts of certain things where you'd look at it and be like, that doesn't make sense in the background.
It flies in the face of conventional filming. When I was taking film classes in college, I used to hear that these were continuity errors. And they were that was the technical phrase, errors. And I think Stanley Kubrick didn't do these out of an error. I think he was intentional with all of these continuity disruptions. And I think he wanted to make it a dreamlike state for the viewer.
Yeah.
To know that something's odd and something's wrong, but you can't put a finger on it. So, for example, one of them is too much luggage when they first moved in.
Yep.
Others were, if you actually followed the path down the hallway, you would end up in rooms that had windows that actually wouldn't logically be facing the outside. Or the carpet, in one shot, the pattern on the carpet was facing one direction, and in the next cut, facing the exact same direction, the carpet pattern reverses.
The other thing I liked about the film...
There were lots of little things like that.
The cinematography was at a different level. The one scene that always kind of freaked me out when I was as a kid watching this, when you see those two girls holding each other's hand, the two sisters, they're just staring at the kid while he's like riding on his three-wheel. He's just kind of cruising around, and as he's cruising around, he's starting to notice something's really messed up about this hotel. And by the way, this is a Stephen King story, so you have to assume there's ghosts.
Well, the novel is, although...
of course, Stanley Kubrick, he kind of put his own spin to it, I would suppose.
Sure.
And Stephen King probably did not. Actually, we read some article about how Stephen King did not appreciate
changes.
Stanley Kubrick's vision, but it turned out that his vision is something that even to this day we still talk about.
Still watching it and rewatching it. The rewatchability is very high, and you get this feeling after watching it that you missed something, and when you go back, you always notice something different. It's something that, what I think is fascinating about it is some of the interpretation that I bring to the story is what I'm getting out of it as well. So you have to pay attention. Are you really reading everything correctly, or how much of it is you bring the meaning to it?
Yeah,
to any sort of interpretation of a paranormal event.
One thing I would say about this documentary is that it's cool because it brings up a lot of his previous movies he's worked on, and it kind of goes into the mind of Stanley Kubrick, saying that he likes this idea of shocking or titillating his audience. One of the things he was I liked about the documentary, it talked about how he said, wow, they're sexualizing things like buying toothpaste or buying this or buying that. Marketing. And his big thing was Stan Kubrick went to some of these places and says, I want to be able to do what you do, but through a movie.
Fight Club before Fight Club.
This is Fight Club before Fight Club. You got that right.
Poor Chuck Palahniuk did it. I was a lot of the subliminal messaging. I was wondering, and this is a really big question, and I'm going to bring the answer that one of the conspirators or conspiracy theories in room 237 said. But what do you? How would you describe what The Shining is?
I would say that it's about a movie about a man.
Oh, no, not the movie. In the movie, the kid has The Shining in the.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do I think about the kid, or about?
What exactly do you think the power is?
It's some type of telecommunication. Like he was able to predict the future. He was more in tune with the ghost. They had one ghost that did appear in front of him in a very aggressive way in the bathroom. That was kind of a.
Sure.
That was a little too much. Well, we're not going to show pictures of that, but yeah.
We'll focus on the future part. I'm going to throw this in here. What if it's not just about the future, but also knowing the past?
See, I think that's the reason why
responses make sense, given that the overlook's on an Indian burial ground. When he loses the picture of innocence of Dopey on in his bedroom. He loses that. It makes you wonder that if you're using The Shining, he's now aware of, let's say, human atrocities en masse. It could be about the Native American genocide, or it could just be a more general symbol for the horrors that humanity has to create. And then, when he knows that, you notice in the film, he approaches it in a different way. He approaches his father cautiously. Right?
Yeah.
Because he knows what his father
is up.
He knows what his father's capable of, whether he can see the future or not. He knew what his father was capable of, not just if he could see the future, but also because he understands the past of humanity and that we're all capable of travesties.
Yeah. And also that iconic scene with the blood coming out of the elevator. If you haven't seen this movie, that is a very eye-shocking...
And what's interesting is the elevator doesn't open. It actually comes out from the sides of the elevator.
I thought it slowly opened and then the blood came out.
No, the way that the set built, it's a little bit surreal, but it actually came out from the sides of the doors as they were still closed. Now, whether that means anything or not, I'm not sure. They've used it several times, but I think it's supposed to maybe represent, again, the Native American genocide was one suggestion. Another might be genocides in general that humans have participated in, or it could just be the blood of humanity. The fact that we're standing here today making a podcast built on years and years and years of war and technological development, which is brutal. And maybe it's with kids, you usually want to protect them from that brutality. But in this case, well, the kid was, but then the mother was later in the film, confronted with all of that blood and brutality. It reminded me of Mikasa in Attack on Titan, when she first fought to save Eren, after Eren is saving her from some kidnappers, some slave traders. And what happened, though, is she has this realization that when her father brought home the dead duck for dinner, right, she was watching before that a grasshopper eat a bug by cutting it in half and congesting it. It's that there's this brutality to nature that you have to accept. Whether or not that affects your enjoyment of eating the duck, that's on you.
Very, very oily, very oily.
But maybe all this blood was a sort of confronting and losing of innocence that the kid had to face, and then the mother also had to face. Because she wanted this bright, beautiful, pristine family, and her family's obviously not that picture.
Yep.
So her having to confront that it's not going to be a storybook.
I also like this idea of the photo that Stanley Kubrick kept pulling these photos. He also made it so that it was like
the 1930s,
the mansion,
1920s, 1921, I believe.
The black and white photo with all those people there and him being in the front. What that tells me is that there's this idea that this house, this woman, they're like feeding the energy off of you, or
well, what I think it showed is that there's this royalty in this past, because again there was this ballroom. It was very elegant. I think a lot of it has to do with, does the past exist, or the past doesn't want to die. Well, so in August 1921, maybe there was this blindness to the atrocities of war. World War II hasn't happened yet, right? In the early 20s. So, we haven't been confronted with things like
the past,
the Holocaust,
or
Hitler, right? And so in the 20s, maybe there's this naivete, and you can see how different people deal with it. You can have Jack who walks in and says, "Hey, I'm get me a drink. I'm here participating in human history, and I fit right in to this, dance and ball, which is a sort of escapism, whether it's alcohol for Jack or the ball setting of the past. It's a sort of metaphor maybe for the escapism that humans have from atrocities. Maybe I'm wrong. And again, I'm saying this after watching 237, which is mostly about conspiracies on how to interpret symbols.
I did like in the documentary they had like a map of the building, and they showed the characters moving within the building. And
well, it was shot in two different sites. There was a castle in England that they used. So it's supposed to take place in Colorado, but there was one site in Portland, Oregon, that they used. And then there was another one in England that actually had the hedge maze next to the hotel. One of them had the arch, the other didn't. That's why in different shots, the building looks different, because they're actually different hotels that they did the filming in. Filming at least on the outside of.
Wow.
Yeah.
But if you were going to give this a rating from 1 to 10, 1 not being very good, 10 being amazing, what would you give this?
I would say if you are really interested, if you've seen The Shining once and you felt like you want to better understand it, then this is the movie for you. This is a 9.5 out of 10. I don't agree with all of the conspiracy theories, but it's nice to hear people's general impressions if people have unique takes on what's going on. Kubrick, of course, is notorious for detail in terms of the type of typewriter he uses or what kind of cans he puts in the shelf of the refrigerator, right? So if you're interested in people kind of looking at details of this is going to be your 9 out of 10. Otherwise, I think it's a snoozer for a lot of people who aren't passionate about The Shining. I think they're going to lose interest halfway, and it's a 7. I'd say a 6.5 or 7 out of 10 for those. But if you're interested and you're a horror fan and you've seen The Shining and you just want to
get a little bit more,
you wish you had 20 people in the room with you investigating it, This is the movie to watch for it.
I would give this a 7 out of 10.
Or in the later category.
The later category.
See, I'm in the first category. I'm in the 9.5. I'm in the.
I liked it, but I just felt like it was dragging a little too hard. I wish I would see the faces more than just the voices and the audio.
See, I wanted someone to count the number of mustache hairs were on there and to see if the amount changed per day of filming. You know, that's the kind of person I am. So I'm leaning towards the 9.5, but I know that it's a 7 for the average view. Yeah.
But overall, I would say this is a recommend if you're a horror fan and you want to learn more about The Shining.
Yeah, and one downside I should bring up, and your tolerance for this might also affect your rating or your enjoyment if you're viewing it on your own. These people that are giving their views, they're not necessarily trained orators or actors. These are regular folk who came up with a theory, maybe even 50, 60 years ago, that they've been writing about on forums, and know that the pace of some of the storytelling might be very slow. Someone might tell a story that a professional would tell in 5 minutes in 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So certainly there, you know, if you've ever been at a family reunion and you really are interested in the first time your grandparent caught a hula hoop rolling down the street, if you don't mind 15 minutes of that story, you know, and you can be really enthralled by it, then you'll do fine with this. But otherwise, some people might say, you know what, I don't like this person's conspiracy idea, and they sure are taking a long time to explain it.
I would say overall, this is definitely a recommend to watch if you're into that type of genre. I think we're going to wrap this episode a little early, but
Sure.
Overall, I think it was cool. I like the cinematography. I like the fact that they pointed out when a chair would appear and then disappear. I also like the idea that
the way you
have like these cans of food that Kubrick was so intense about the labeling. He created his own labels and he labeled these cans with like Native American Indian like artwork or something.
Well, so Calumet is on some of the cans, and under it says baking powder, but Calumet is Native American for it's a type of peace pipe. And so when you have the letters broken with the camera facing, it's supposed to maybe represent broken treaties between settlers and Native Americans. But again, that's the sort of level of symbolism that you're going to get spread throughout this documentary, whether you buy it or not. Or you think maybe it's just put there as a red herring so that people overanalyze it and spend a fun Saturday night bugging their friends.
Overall, I think this was a great episode. We always like telling our audience, if you can like and subscribe and tell your friends about our show,
why
we
not?
would really appreciate
Sure.
that. And hopefully, if you tell enough people about our show, we ourselves will never end up in a hotel.
We aren't scary, even though we watch scary movies.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we won't be haunted either.
Not yet, at least.
Hopefully not. On that note, this is the Red Beam Podcast, New Orleans edition. This is your host, Mr. Toad.
It's Dr. Frog.
We'll see you guys later. Please like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
See you.